Hello, thank you for joining us this afternoon for our office hours on accountability with Axiom. We are so excited to have you in attendance today to be able to review your questions, supply you with some answers that have maybe been on your mind as more information is becoming available to you from state assessments this year. And so Ed Cunningham will be guiding our conversation today. He will do his best to answer any questions that you have. We'll go over some norms in just a moment, and we'll do our best to recap any information that you might still need some clarity on.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody. So this is the first time we've done something like an office hours. And so we'll try to work through it with you guys. I also have queued up, this is actually a second webinar for Axiom. We did a recorded webinar and sent it out to a lot of folks, and we have that available online. I have that content available so we can actually discuss that as well. So if you've watched that webinar, or if you have that webinar queued up to watch sometime, we can address a lot of that stuff. But really, I just wanted to be available to you guys to answer any questions that you have related to Axiom, to accountability projections, and to general STAAR and STAAR data file questions. We've got a lot of newness this year with a new testing vendor and with files and things like that. And so we just want to be available for those types of things. We created some norms for this to see if because this is the first time we've done this. So let's see if this works. We'd like you to use the Q&A feature to ask us questions. We've got Tara, who just spoke, on the line, and she's going to be monitoring that. If you want to chat with the attendees, you can go ahead and also use the chat feature. We see some people using the chat now. There is the recording, by the way, that I just spoke of. It's going directly to our YouTube channel. So Tara just posted that in the chat. So if you have the chat open, you can pull that up and access it. A lot of the content that I can show you today is in that webinar. That's about 15 minutes. The cool thing about that recorded webinar is it's chaptered out. So you can skip to the part that you need to, or skip back to the part that you need to at any time. So that's a cool resource for you. When people use the Q&A to put your questions in, you could use the upvote option. If somebody asks a question that you would like for me to also address, or you would also like for me to address, that can help us kind of prioritize the order for us to talk through this. Raise your hand. We could even promote somebody in here to speak. If anybody has something to offer, some clarity related to something that maybe that we don't know. You guys get a lot of emails and information from TEA, for example, that we don't get. And so if I say something and you have some sort of correction or thought about it, you could always put your hand up in the chat, and we'll open it up for you to speak to. And with that, we could get started with a presentation of what is Axiom, or we could get started with some questions. So are there any questions that anybody wants to kind of jump in, or should we kind of do a little overview? What do you think, Tara?
I think if we do a brief overview, that will help give time for questions to be submitted. If you could submit them through the Q&A, again, that will help us be able to upvote things. And then if there's side conversations you want to have, feel free to engage in the chat and provide extra context to one another. That will be super helpful.
Okay, so in Aware, we have a few different options available related to accountability projections. So we have Axiom, which is what this webinar is about. And we also have a Domain 1 report that's just in the Aware Reports tab. The main differences are laid out here on the screen. Axiom is going to have overall and domain-specific score rating projections based on the data that you have in Aware. And I'm going to call out how emphasized we have the boldface and the italics there based on available data. We are not TEA. Only TEA can assign campus and district ratings. We mean these to be projections. They're early projections. I wouldn't even call them preliminary reports because only TEA can provide preliminary reports. But Axiom offers a lot of graphs and report options so that you can use the data starting now and you don't have to wait on those reports later. Gives you kind of a leg up on addressing any potential concerns that you might have related to what your accountability might be. It's a projection. The best thing about Axiom, in my opinion, is that last item on the bottom left, and that is the student level data option. And I'm going to be showing that. That is the thing that you will not get from a TEA report that has just the ratings. We actually let you get down into the student level data where you can create monitor groups for next year. We really do mean for Axiom to not just stop at the projection, but to be something that helps you quickly get to groups of students that you then want to monitor throughout the next school year for interventions and enrichment. So how do you get Axiom? It's a sales call. You're going to want to contact our sales@eduphoria.net email if you don't currently have Axiom. The question of do you have Axiom is if you log in and you see an Axiom tab, then you have Axiom. There is a right associated with it, and I can actually just show this to you in real time. If you go to Aware Management, where do I have management pulled up? If you go to Aware Management, you can actually go to rights, and there is a right called Analyze Accountability Data, and it is a campus level or district level right. You can see that this person, this principal, whose name is Axiom, so I guess their parent wanted them to use it. Axiom principal, I'm sorry, that was a terrible joke. Axiom principal is able to analyze accountability data for just their campus, just like any other right. And then, of course, if you had the checkbox, just like every other right, the checkbox means district level access. That is a very, very important distinction because you're going to want campus principals to have access to this, but you may want to limit their access until all your data files are in and things like that. And so we're going to go ahead and show that in these slides. So
and before you move on, we just got a question in the Q&A. Is the right associated with the principal role, or does it need to be separately assigned?
that is an excellent question. I believe that it is associated with the principal role. We can test that right now. Let's find out together. I am pretty sure if I take this and save it, and I go over to rights, they lost it. And when I go back to roles and recheck principal and save it, they gained it back. So yes, when you assign somebody the principal role for one or several campuses, that principal role will also get them the right analyze accountability data. This is also how the domain 1 report works. So if you have access to the domain 1 report, it's because you are a principal or a district level person with the analyze accountability data right. The most important part about that is the district level people who have access to Axiom are able to limit it. And so I'm going to be showcasing that. This is a resource from Region 10, and I'm not going to read it, but we have updated Axiom for 2022 accountability. And so the rules related to 2022 accountability have been included in our considerations. The most important ones, I believe, for you are that we, of course, removed the expectation of retest data for 5th and 8th grade, and also for the standalone writing assessment in grades 4 and 7. Those have been completely removed from Axiom. There's no expectation for those. We've also made sure that no one in Axiom will receive a projected rating of D or F because of the rule this year that says that no school or district will get a rating of D or F. So in Axiom, you will see A, B, C, or you will see not rated, and you will still get the scaled scores for everything related to what would have gotten the D or F, but we put that up there as not rated. The English language proficiency multiple year methodology for domain 3, that is something that is also new this year, and that's something that is important to recognize. Is a complicated thing to calculate because we have to look in multiple files for that. And so I'm going to put an asterisk on that one. That one is new this year related to, all the chaos of the last few years.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this overview and the changes that were made for this year. Can you let our audience know what day they should be able to access Axiom?
That is a fantastic question. You have access to Axiom right now. So I am logged in right now. Now I'm logged in as a demo account. So my Axiom is pointing to old fake 2019 data, but yours has actually been updated for 2022. You have access to it now. And as soon as you have all of your STAAR files loaded in, so I'm going to actually go to where that takes place. If you go to view data files in Axiom, it will pull up every data file that's relevant to Axiom projections. Now I have fake data in mine, but you do not load data into Axiom itself. You load Axiom, you load your data in like you would any other, would actually go to analyze. When you're in just regular analyze and you have the ability to upload test files and you load those test files in just like you have done for years and years, those STAAR files are read by Axiom, and we will look at those and we'll check to make sure that they're the files that have the correct information. And that's what loads Axiom files. So you can check your view data files to make sure that you have the correct ones in there, but that's how it works. But you have it now. In fact, if you're still loading your data files in, I believe that 3 through 8 STAAR, we're still waiting on those. So if you're still waiting, loading your data files in, one of the main things that you're going to want to do in the meantime is you're going to want to configure your campuses. So because there are different campus types and accountability is projected slightly different for the different campus types, you're going to want to go in and manage each of those campuses so that it can be the correct campus type. So you're going to go ahead and label those. And then based on how you label those, you may have to enter additional data, because remember I said in one of those overview slides, it's based off of available data. Well, we do not have graduation rate, CCMR rate, or for graduation rate or CCMR rate. I want to point out one cosmetic issue that we're going to get addressed. You will notice that mine says 2018 and 2019. Okay, that's because mine is locked into an older version of Axiom so that it can still run off of old demo data. Yours should say the correct current years. However, I did see a ticket where somebody was saying the wrong years. We updated the formula. We might have missed the years, like the cosmetic part. So we're going to go ahead and fix that if we didn't already. Yours does not say the correct years. Okay, excellent, perfect. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to treat 2018 and 2019 as though they say the correct years. Pretend they say 2021 and 2020 for graduation rate. The formula has been updated. We have not updated the years here in this screen. So you can go ahead and proceed to type your information in here. We will not lose the data. Go ahead and type it in, but we're going to have to fix the words on the screen. Sorry about that. Sorry about the confusion. Okay, so you can enter that for the district and for each of your schools that have graduation and CCMR data. You can enter that information in here. And also the economically disadvantaged percentage that is necessary for domain 2B. So in order to determine a projection for relative performance, we need to know what your economically disadvantaged percentage was that was reported back in the fall of 2021. We do not have access to that information, so that information needs to be typed in here. It's best to go straight to the source. You're going to want to use the exact percentage rounded to the 10th place that will be used by TEA for your relative performance. We have all the lookup tables programmed into Axiom. They haven't changed since 2017. We have those lookup tables available. We just need to know which percentage we're looking up in those tables.
So I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the chat for a moment. Amber Jones shared a link from Region 10 users site that gives you some additional details on the manual entry that Ed was just going over. So you have kind of shorter little snippets that you can reference as you are ready to incorporate this information into your site. And then Ed, I have a question for you from the Q&A. Does Axiom take into account years in U.S. schools for EL performance measure and additional information on that topic?
That is an excellent question. The answer is yes. Axiom does take into account all the rules related to accountability subset, including years in U.S. schools. I'm going to go ahead and put a little asterisk on that statement. My biggest concern related to our update for Amber is at the TASSP conference and is being kicked out of the exhibit hall where she's currently participating in this webinar. Okay, we'll see in a minute.
I promise I'll be back in a second.
That's fine. Every time there's a change to the calculations, to the projections, especially when it comes to the more complex domains like domain 3, we want to put a huge disclaimer on our projections. We need to test them, and we cannot test them until real STAAR files are loaded in and real numbers get calculated in your districts. And so as you guys load your files in and look at Axiom, I am very, very confident about domain 1 and domain 2A. And domain 2B, if you get that economically disadvantaged percentage in there typed in correctly, is probably pretty good. Domain 3, with the new changes for the EL students, that indicator, that's the one that I'm going to want to take a closer look at once you guys start having numbers, to make sure that we're calculating it correctly, where it takes the best of the 2 years. And so I wanted to put that disclaimer out there because there's a very, very important thing related to Axiom projections that I think I've emphasized enough, but I'm going to emphasize it again. This is not your official rating. This is Axiom's projection based off of available data. Please do not take your Axiom scores to the school board or publish them publicly. You know, the reporter come asking, they're going to get that information from TEA when they get announced in a little way, in a few months. So this is for your internal use. This is for your internal discussions. This is for preparation and planning that's going to take place over the summer. But it is absolutely not official. And we highly, highly want to emphasize that fact. I hope I've emphasized that enough. We had somebody one year take this to kind of put it out public, and their scores look right, but it's still, it's not appropriate to present anything other than the TEA ratings. Okay, so we talked about data files, we talked about campus configurations. The next thing I want to talk about, I think is very important, is this recalculate all data. So here's the deal. This is why Axiom is valuable. I'm going to talk about domain 1. I can go into Aware that has all of STAAR files, and I can use filters so I can find the right subset of students, the accountability subset, and I can get pretty close on domain 1 by myself using Excel and Aware data views. It'll take me a while. What Axiom does is it makes it so that you don't have to do that. It builds those data tables in the background so that once you've calculated Axiom and all the data files and CCMR and graduation rate is in there, your domain 1 should look right. It's one of the easiest, more straightforward calculations. Every time you load something new in, you're going to need to recalculate data, because what that does is it makes it so that every user who has access to Axiom will now have the updated data. We'll have the value here is no principal should ever have to wait for Axiom to load, because you will have already calculated the data and it sits in the data file. And so that actually is a good question, Patricia Parker. We have the limited access button. I highly recommend that you check this box and limit access to those principals until all of your data are in, because I'm going to actually click over to another tab. This is my Axiom principal, but you'll notice that Axiom principal does not have an Axiom tab on the left. But when I go to manage users and I give, actually I just gave them this, so let's say that again. When I reload this principals page, well, did I lie just now? They have Axiom, save. I come over here to the principal, Axiom principal. Okay. Oh, that's right, because I limited access. It's working as appropriate. I just talked myself out of that. As soon as I check this box and say, now they have access, when I go back to Axiom principal and I refresh the page, there's Axiom. And this principal only has Axiom for their high school, and they can go then look at the data table for high school. So that's the purpose of this limit button, is it makes it so that everybody who's not a district level manager does not have access. And let me go refresh this page again. I lost access because I checked that box again. So that's a very important box to check while you're configuring your campuses and while you're waiting on STAAR files and while you're waiting on all the other information to be entered in. So that's that.
Ed, we have a question relevant to where we're at right now in this discussion. So in the Q&A, we have an individual that is stating that they know they don't have the 3 through 8 campus data files in, but they are seeing projections. Is it possible that it's still showing them last year's projections?
That's a very good question. So Axiom is always going to show something. It's probably not showing last year's projections. It's probably, I don't want to speculate too much. I'd be interested in knowing exactly what it's showing, but knowing that Axiom captures the aggregate of domain 1 summer 20. So yes, it correctly pulls in all the files, but if you have like an elementary campus, it should not have any data in there yet, but it still might show not rated or something like that. Now, if it's showing something other than not rated, I'd be curious, but that's really the reason why I'm emphasizing the limit access, because until those data files are in there, those projections are incorrect. It doesn't have a mechanism in place to say, well, since you haven't loaded this file in, we're just going to put an error here or something like that. It's just going to run it based off of not having all of the data. It does appropriately pull in all EOC administrations relevant to 2022 accountability. So that would include, of course, the summer from last year, fall from last year, and spring from this year. It includes the spring STAAR from this year for grades 3 through 8. And of course, since there was no retest for grades 5 and 8 this year, those are excluded.
Okay. I'd just like to reiterate, for anyone who's not aware, you can always contact our support team via email at support@eduphoria.net. This will give us kind of the time and attention to investigate your site and provide you a more precise answer to what you are seeing. So if that might not have answered your question, feel free to reach out to support@eduphoria.net, where we can do a little more thorough investigation of why you're seeing that data.
Yes.
Another question for you, Ed, since we're talking about the data files, does it use the aware demographics or demographics from the data file?
That's an excellent question. It uses the demographics directly from the data files. We know that the demographics in aware from your normal roster updates are mostly accurate. However, every now and then, because a student might have a demographic specific to the day that they were testing that is different from what's in aware, well, TEA doesn't know what's in aware. TEA knows what's in that data file because they're the ones that created that data file. And so we use only the information from the data file. There is one exception to that, and that is related to the continuously enrolled and non-continuously enrolled domain 3 student groups. We do not have access to information about who is continuously enrolled and not continuously enrolled. It doesn't come in with the student records. And so what we do is we take that one, we actually do mine your rosters over the last several years and determine whether or not a student is continuously enrolled or not continuously enrolled. That means that there may be an error in determining, especially if you're a newer customer that we don't have a long history of roster imports for. The longer you've been a customer with Aware, the more accurate that probably is. But we do have to take a guess at continuously enrolled and non-continuously enrolled because of that. So that would mean that student group inclusion for those 2 student groups in domain 3 could be impacted based off of data available to us or not available to us.
And on the same topic of students, does it include students not in the subset, meaning if students were not here on snapshot?
Excellent question. So that's actually one of the easiest things to determine, because every single STAAR record includes a fall CDC county district campus number and the testing CDC county district campus number. And so we compare those, and we include the students appropriately if they were testing at the same location where they were in attendance on the fall snapshot date, and we exclude them appropriately if they were not. We actually have that information available to you at the student level. And so in a little while, when I show that, I can actually show you how you can find out included or excluded information.
Okay, and I have one more question. I'm going to copy and paste it in the chat since I know your eyes are there because we've got several words here. But the question is around accelerated testers. So we have a situation, would 12th graders who took high school English 2, Algebra 1, and biology course in middle school, and therefore do not have a high school test score in those subjects. And TEA is incorporating their SAT, ACT score for current year 12th graders and accountability. Is this something you could speak to?
That is, I'm glad you brought that up. That is also a piece of data that is foreign to Aware. We do not have a way of knowing that. So they are likely in your STAAR data files as score code O, didn't take the test. Is it O, or is it, there might be a different score code for that, but we do not incorporate their results in because we don't know who they are.
Okay, and I have one question going back to a previous topic on entering the economic disadvantage percentages. Is this an auto save? I am not seeing a save button for this feature.
Oh, that's it. Yes, everything in Axiom is set for autosave. That is correct. In fact, when this recalculate all data, I'm not going to click it because this is my demo site, but if you click the recalculate all data button, the best thing to do is click it one time and then just find something else to do. It has to run a lot of calculations in the background after you click that. And so it's not going to immediately refresh when you do that. And so our recommendation is that you recalculate all data and then say, okay, I'm done with Axiom for right now, and do something else. It is recalculate. It's not a super long process, but I wanted to make sure. One of the things that happens sometimes is people click the button and then click the button a few other times. That actually makes it worse, because every time you click it, it's starting the process over again. And so we recommend that once you've configured campuses, maybe you've loaded in some new data files, you click that recalculate all data button, and then you move on to another task for a little bit.
Thanks for providing that context. We have a question that just popped up in the chat. Does Axiom account for bonus points for AEA campuses?
I believe that Axiom does have a way for you to indicate your AEA campuses, but I need to follow up on that one because I want to make sure that we've appropriately updated. They changed the bonus point rules, didn't they, for AEA? So I need to follow up on that.
Okay, they said copy that. Then we have another question in the chat around the topic of accelerated testers. Is there a way to perhaps upload a file containing these students and their STAAR equivalent performance levels for their SAT, ACT exams taken?
That is a fantastic feature request idea, and I am going to write that down. I think that that actually might be a good solution for that. We know who the students are. We can know who the students are because they're in your system, and we can probably very easily. Yes, I think that we could possibly treat that as a feature request. Yes, thank you. It doesn't currently, no, but I think that's a good idea.
And thanks to those of you using chat to help provide context for one another. It's super helpful when we can all be here to support one another with a topic that's as complex as accountability. So I think we have gone through most of the posted questions. We do have one in the Q&A. If you would be able to demonstrate for us creating a monitor group from within Axiom.
Awesome. I'm glad you asked. Was that an Eduphoria employee who asked that? Because that's my favorite feature. I feel like I got set up to do the cool part. Okay, so I'm going to go to student achievement, but you can do this through school progress also if you want to. When you go to any one of the domains and you've got the information related to how we calculate the scores, we also have the table of results. Well, if you click on any number in the table, like I'm interested in the number of students who approach grade level, I click this button. It takes me to, it takes a second to load the students in, but it takes me to a data table that represents those students. So the students that I just checked were approaches grade level equals yes at the district level. Okay, and I think I picked all subjects. All right, this is absolutely the best part of Axiom, because what you can do from here is whatever you want. So for example, I can say, you know what, I want only the students that were in domain 1, or only the students who were not included because maybe they didn't fall as a part of the accountability subset, and you can see it just updated to a different list of students. I can set my score code. This is really, really helpful for if you're doing HP 4545 monitor groups and you need to include students who maybe didn't take the test because they were absent. You can actually include all students in your score code, or you can say just the students who were absent, or whatever you need to do. You can set different filters based off of student groups. And at the very end, you get all these little filters related to did not meet grade level equals yes, approaches grade level, meets grade level. Let's say you wanted to find all the students who were, let's do not set for approaches. Let's say meets grade level equals yes, master's grade level equals no. Whoop, nope, I said not set. Okay, this might be a monitor group related to distinction designations, you know, and we don't do anything with distinction designations in Axiom because there's no way for us to know who your 40 campus comparisons are and how they did and all that other stuff. But you can think in my with the distinction indicators in mind. You know that master's grade level performance and exceeding STAAR progress are ways that you can earn points towards distinctions. Well, how cool is it that you can go find all the students who maybe took the tests of any subject, any grade level. You can say, I want the students who didn't get master's grade level, but who got meets grade level. Get that list of students, make them a monitor group. That would be a group that could have earned you distinctions potentially had they scored maybe 1 or 2 points higher. That's the kind of thing you can do here. So once you've done that, once you've got your filters in place, including subject, grade level, you simply say create monitor group. And what it does is it takes you to the monitor group. It creates a monitor group, and it gave me the name district excluded because that was the name of, that was auto-generated based off of the nonsense filters that I just did. So you could then go into your aware students tab where you manage those monitor groups, and there's a district group called whatever I just said, that one, district excluded, and you can of course change the name to whatever you want it to be. That's how Axiom relates to monitor groups. You can use this, like I said, for 4545. I think that's one of the best uses of that table, because you're going to need to quickly go through and find, let's say, all the math students who you need to be monitoring for 4545. Well, you can just set the subject to math. You can say include all kids. I don't care if they were in the accountability subset or not. I want to include all the kids. You can use that filter to do that, and then you can find those kids.
Awesome. Great action happening in the chat right now. Amber has shared that the Region 10 team has some learning opportunities for campus principals and others to apply what Ed just showed throughout the year so that you can make sure that you're serving students where they most need that service and additional support. So thank you for sharing that, Amber. I also posted in the chat, if we overlooked a question that you've submitted, please go ahead and get that into the Q&A so that we can make sure to review it together.
We've got a couple of cool reports in Axiom while some of y'all think of questions. The domain summary report is really good, especially for, this is a district level report. Sometimes you just need a printed or, dump it in Excel version of the report that has the scores for every single campus in the district, also the district. So we have this report available to you. It's got the predicted rating, the overall score, and then the score for each of the domains. You can print it to PDF or export it to Excel. That's a really good one to just get everybody all on one page. You can kind of eyeball it. If there's any sort of weird outliers, like, you know what, it doesn't make any sense for this campus to have this score, that would be the kind of thing that would indicate a need to kind of explore the data and see what's in there. We also have the custom STAAR summary report, where maybe you do need to prepare something so you can sit down and chat about it, maybe compared to like last year's data or something like that. It's just a data table. It looks a little bit like an aware view, if you ask me. The cool thing about it is it quickly loads with your accountability subset students. So you can quickly say, okay, look, we're interested in looking at maybe just reading and math. So you can uncheck these boxes. They didn't uncheck. They're acting really slow. Because of course they're acting slow because I'm in a webinar. So yeah, you select and deselect the columns and rows. And okay, page unresponsive. That's why something's happening. That's on my end. This was the custom STAAR summary report, So that's a really useful one for just kind of getting in there and building a quick table without having to use quick views. All right, so I'm having some issues with my browser. Okay. What else do we have question-wise? I'm just going to reload that page. We have one called All Accountability Reports for when you absolutely definitely need just a whole bunch of printed pages. This is literally what it says. All Accountability Reports. You get a PDF of district and every single campus, every single page in domain 1, domain 2, domain 2A, domain 2B, domain 3, and overall for everyone, just a giant packet of paper. So sometimes we need a giant packet of paper because it's accountability, and that's how you get that. The performance and progress graph, my demo site is not going to show this. It's a graph. It's kind of an interesting graph. Yeah, I didn't show it. It's going to plot a sort of a bubble plot of your performance versus your progress from STAAR math and reading. My demo site doesn't have it.
And we have had another question come in related to domain 3. How does Axiom handle closing the gap?
Okay, so we put a lot of work into trying to make sure we follow the correct minimum size criteria for all your groups. And we include the, we use the methodology from the manual to exclude the group and then to load balance the proportion based off of which groups are included. The question about domain 3 EL component, as soon as we have some folks with their STAAR files fully loaded, we want to actually dive in and look at those to make sure that we're accurately calculating that. And then what we'll do is if we find some errors in our methodology, we'll apply, we'll get fixes out very quickly. Let's talk a little bit about that real fast. The way Axiom works is based off of a lot of fancy pants math, right? Accountability. So what we have, it's been a few years since we've done this, but what happened last year is people would report, hey, this number looks funny. And we treat every single one, we look at every single one. Why does the number look funny? Oftentimes the number looks funny because, oh, you're missing this file, or maybe this campus didn't get configured, or it's missing some CCMR data and it's a high school and it should have it. So we go and we look into that. The next thing we do is we ask for like, well, what is it that makes you think that the number might be off? So maybe you did the calculation somewhere in a different system and you can kind of show us where you think it might be off. The next thing we do is we dive into the methodology because it's those outlier cases that end up being the reason for it. And so we have a whole troubleshooting path that we've created for trying to figure out why the numbers might be off. And then we have a group of engineers that are kind of on call during this hot time. And we quickly jump in, fix the formula, and release an update. Once we've released an update, we have, I think we've set up in Online Help a page that will show like the last time an update went out. And so that might be a place to look. I need to check into that and see if that's, Tara, is that something that we did or has it published yet?
Can you repeat that one more time?
We had discussed setting up a page of just like updates, like we released an update on this date and then maybe 2 days later release an update on this date. We talked about doing that, but I don't think that page is published yet.
I don't think that is live yet, but we will definitely be working on a status page specifically to Axiom and our frequently asked questions as they come in.
Perfect. And that's the other thing. I'm glad you said that. We have an FAQ section for Axiom, and that's where we keep a lot of the things that are coming in that's sort of hot topics. Okay.
Okay, we do have a couple other questions starting to come in. Some of them are becoming pretty specific.
Okay.
So following up from a previous question on the English language learners, the question was previously asking about the EL performance and not the EL proficiency.
Okay.
And then we have a call out that the EL plan created for second year to US school in domain 1, 2, and 3. Do you need any additional context to address this question?
No, so we get all of that information. So all of that is related to information that's included in the STAAR file. There's a whole separate TELPAS section, I believe, that includes extra pieces of data that we need. So we do pull that from the test records themselves, if I'm answering that correctly.
Thanks for that further clarification, Brandy. If that still didn't answer your question, please resubmit and we'll circle back again. Now we have a question related to growth. So for growth, does it look at just the progress or does it also count the 1 or 2 points for growth?
Okay, so we use the same tables that they use to get the appropriate points based off of the 1 or 2 points. I think I used more words than I needed to answer that question. The answer is yes, we use the methodology from the manual for academic growth. When you go to the domain 2 school progress, we put A and B both in the same spot. And so.
Okay, and staying on this topic for a moment, is there a way to look at the STAAR progress measure organized by teacher? I know we can drill down in AWARE and look at achievement, but what about progress?
That is a good question. Axiom does not use testing instructor because testing instructor is not part of STAAR data. So we have testing instructor as native to AWARE, like you mentioned in the question, native to AWARE. It's known as a part of the roster imports. And so it's not something that we make available to Axiom. We tried, so the precision necessary for discussions related to accountability makes us cautious about even something like what we did with the continuously enrolled and non-continuously enrolled. I'm not super comfortable with our methodology simply because it's not the same methodology that TEA uses. But since we don't have access to the data, we have to do something. But something related to like analyzing by teacher and things like that, we really kind of defer to the data views and AWARE. So we do not include testing instructor in Axiom.
Okay, and on the topic of the incoming data, is there any way that preliminary data can be used in Axiom, or does the district need to wait for the final files?
That's an excellent question. The preliminary data files do not include enough information for us to know if a student should belong in the accountability subset. So we do not, Axiom does not even look at them. We had to build a separate special importer for the preliminary STAAR files so that those would be treated separately from the actual STAAR files. And so you may notice in AWARE, when you've got preliminary and real files in there, you'll actually see that as 2 separate test types. We completely ignore preliminary files for Axiom.
Okay, then we have another question around the data file. So while we have been running this Q&A, the individual has reviewed that the 2021 June EOC, 2021 December EOC, and 2022 spring EOC data files, as well as the STAAR and EOC alt files are in the system and the data has been recalculated. However, only 2019 appears in the data table view for middle schools and high schools.
Okay. I'm going to need to review that outside this webinar and troubleshoot it that way. So if we can get that just documented, I will take a look at that afterwards.
Okay, the best way forward for us, Patricia, in this particular instance would be for you to reach out to support@eduphoria.net so we can further our investigation specifically to your needs. Okay, it looks like we have an extension on the continuous versus non-continuously enrolled. So I am reading this for the first time while out loud. So how about this for continuous versus non-continuously enrolled? Allow for the creation of a monitor group that the district user can upload containing their students identified as continuously enrolled, or allow for the upload of a file containing students for a particular snapshot. Apply continuously enrolled methodology across the user uploaded snapshot files.
That would work. It does put more work on you guys, but it could potentially be more accurate. So it's not a bad idea, but I want to make sure that we don't do something that creates too much extra work for everyone. Oh yeah, and if they're it's an interesting feature request. I'm going to document that and consider it. That's not a bad idea. It probably wouldn't make it into this round of Axiom. It would probably be for next year.
It looks like there's some consensus in the group of efforts in this area to represent that information. Okay, we have another question related to Domain 3. When the 2022 Domain 3 reports become available, will the ELP target be updated to 36 instead of 42?
Yes, I saw that in the chat. We have that wrong. We'll get that fixed. Yes.
Okay. Thank you all for your feedback and helping us catch that detail. Okay, it looks like we have some stuff in the chat to review. It is my understanding that the Cambium file are raw numbers, and I think the ETS files have the credit for students and meet 2x and masters 3 times already built in. If this is true, does Axiom account for this already in Domain 1?
The way we read the files, we have a student will have a 1 or a 0, like a yes or a no, for each of the performance levels. So we count each of those. The short answer is yes, a student can count up to 3 times in Domain 1 as appropriate. We read that directly off of each performance level. And so a student who has yes, yes, no for approaches meets masters will count twice because we'll count the 2 yeses.
Thanks for that clarification. It looks like at this moment, we are all caught up with questions. So if you have anything you'd like us to speak to in the next 10 minutes, please go ahead and get that submitted now.
I have something that I'd like to say while people think about that. We are having a very precise language-wise conversation about accountability because of the complexities of the system. We do ask that as you find things that are of concern that you contact our support. One of the things that will help us a lot is if you have the same level of precision in possibly in an email, if you're emailing it or if you're calling, if you can help us document with the same level of precision what your concerns are so that we can make sure that we can get that information to the correct people who can interpret it. Our support team has fantastic response time, and we'll be getting everything, all the I's dotted, and handing it off to some of us who are on staff who kind of live in this accountability world. And so anything you can do to help us with that precision of language in investigating your concerns will be very helpful.
Thanks for providing that context. We have a question in the chat that might be suited for Amber to answer. Will there be another webinar scheduled prior to TEA's release on August 15th?
Yeah, so Patty, we do not have one that is currently scheduled for prior to the August release, but if that is something that you guys feel like would be a great addition to that, I can certainly work with Jenny and see if we can find a time to do a webinar prior to the official release.
Okay. Are there any other questions related generally to STAAR files and just data in general? Maybe not necessarily accountability related, but adjacent to the topics? Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and, Tara, if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you guys.
We just had one question
Oh,
pop
okay.
in that
All
I
right.
think you would be excited to expand upon, Ed. So something that everyone participating in this webinar right now can see clearly on their screen is the Try Aware Beta button. Can you let them know kind of the plans for this to become available to our user base and what this means?
You know what? I am excited to talk about that. Yes. So as y'all are aware, if you receive our newsletters, the last 2 months we've sent out newsletters related to our plan to update the interface for Aware. So I've been in Classic Aware as I presented this because I didn't want to be too distracting, but we have a new Aware interface that we're calling the Aware Beta that we'll be releasing to every Aware customer tomorrow. Well, here's the way it works. First of all, please don't panic. You will start here. You will start in Aware Classic, and you do not have to use the Aware Beta. You only have to accept the invitation to try it when you're ready. When you click the Try Aware Beta button, it will take you to our new interface. So the cool thing about this interface is, I'm going to close some of my Zoom windows here and expand this some. The cool thing about this interface is the first thing it brings you to is possibly why you came to Aware in the first place. On the left-hand side, I have recently scored assessments. If this was not a demo site where I'm not recently scoring assessments, I would actually see the most 5 recently scored assessments. Imagine you're a teacher and you just gave a test. It would show up right there. I don't need to go and find that test. I can just go straight to it. It'll take me to the data view. On the right-hand side, it takes me to the 5 most recent assessments that I was authoring or otherwise editing, active or pending. So I can go straight to those tests, or I can create a new assessment using the button here. The most important part about this, in addition to the cool wayfinding, is the new left-hand navigation panel. You'll notice a lot of coming soons. It's a beta. We haven't gotten everything ported over here yet, but you can, in order to build a data view or author an assessment, you can experience our new navigation system that uses these data tables and filters. And so rather than using that tree where you click, 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 click to get to what you're trying to work on, you can go straight to the test that you're trying to, this is a demo site, so I don't have really good test data here, but it has all the test types available to you that are normally available in your district. You can find, you know, by, let's say, 9th grade. There we go. Let's go to this Algebra 1 STAAR. And my favorite part about this is, instead of it going to the quick view right away, I get to pick which template I want to start with. So if I wanted to start with student individual responses, I can start with student individual responses. Once I get to my quick view, it is exactly the same as every quick view I've ever looked at. We are not changing the features. We're just changing how you get to the features. We're going to be operating this for the entire next school year. We are not going to take away your Aware Classic view. So that way, when you have work to do, you can just jump into Aware and use it how you've always used it. We're going to be running this in the background. We're going to be enhancing this interface. And over the course of the school year, we're going to be keeping you updated with an online help article, which I believe I can get to here. Let's go to news and announcements. Aware navigation updates. This section will be continuously curated throughout the entire school year. Eventually, it will have links in this timeline that will take you to updated articles, and we'll keep you kind of in the loop on what our plan is, what else is made it into the beta space. So you can see right now, we have test authoring, test administration for teachers, and data analysis. We have not yet ported over access to students or forums. We're going to work on that the rest of the summer. So we're going to update this article throughout the entire school year. We're going to get you to the help links so that you can access training materials that we have for you. But yeah, I'm real excited about this because Aware is over 15 years old, and it's about time I got a little bit of a facelift.
Thanks so much for providing that context of what to expect moving forward, Ed. We are all super, super excited to share this with you over the next year. And we hope that everyone present will be an early adopter and start using that Aware beta very soon.
Yep. The most important things in Aware are building a test and looking at the data from the test. And so those were the first two things we got for you. So if you need to build your test for next school year, you can actually do that in the beta now, because it's exactly the same. As I say, create new blank test. Look, it's the same options I have. It's the exact same thing. The only difference was I got to it from this home page versus, going to another tab and then clicking a few things.
Yeah, so with our final moments, Ed, I'm going to switch you back into accountability and Axiom land. We had a question come into the Q&A. We might need to follow up with this individual outside of the webinar, but the question is, all of our EOC STAAR Alt2 results are showing in for approaches grade level. The information is not accurate. Any thoughts?
Yes, I suspect it's related to the way we're importing that data. I'll bet it's not an Axiom thing. I'll bet it's an analyze thing. And we need to look at our Alt2 data importer. So let's get that documented, and we may have to push out an update to the importer. It sounds like it's not reading that file.
Okay, thank you for that context. Okay, this is our final moment with you. Any final questions before we say goodbye? In alignment to what we just said with the alt files, Ed, can we also look into the ACT data importer?
Okay, yeah, we'll look at that.
Okay.
All right, thank y'all very much. If you have any questions you think of later, please contact our support at eduphoria.net. Get us the question and we will respond to you as quickly as we can.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.